Alright, now that I've got the throttle out of the way, I wanted to show you down inside the intake. And see that oily residue? That is pretty much a foolproof way to tell if you have a intake manifold leak or a plenum gasket leak. You can get oil in your intake from the PCV valve, but if you can see, let me see if I can get my light to go back in the back. I don't know if you can see back there where my light is, but it looks like there's a lot of oil pulled back there. And then if you look at this side, it looks like the gasket is actually sucked in, and there's hardly any gasket material between this bottom plenum plate and the intake. So clearly this is leaking. I don't really know why, honestly. I don't know why the gasket would fail like that. It's pretty disappointing and frustrating considering I just put this in like 9 months ago. But anyway, obviously I'll be replacing it. So just wanted to show that to you. You can peer down through here without really taking anything off except the air box, and then you just have to open the throttle plate by hand and look down inside. If you climb up on the bumper, you can lean over and see down, or you can use a mirror and shine a light down there, and you'll be able to tell if you have oil in there or not. So anyway, just wanted to mention that in case you're wondering if you have an intake leak. That's a good way to check. So moving along, I think the next thing I'm going to do is disconnect the fuel injector connections. Pretty simple, but they just have little tabs on the side that you have to push in and pull, and then pull the connector apart. And I think these may have had safety tabs on them at one time. I think a little red tab goes in the side, but if I remember correctly, when I took these off the first time, almost all those little red tabs broke off. So it still locks in, but the safety tab keeps it from accidentally coming undone. But anyway, I'm going to pull all the injector connections loose, and then I should be able to move on to removing the fuel rails then. So I shall be right back. One other thing that I forgot to mention, there's a connection here. I think this is the manifold absolute pressure sensor. It reads the pressure within the intake. I believe that's what it is. I could be wrong, but anyway, it just has a tab here that you push in with your finger and pull out. So I've got that labeled. Don't forget to disconnect that. So once again, I'm going to remove the fuel injector connections, and then we'll work on the fuel rails themselves. Alright, I've got my injector connections undone now. I did find one that has a red safety tab on it. I wanted to show you. Basically, that tab is, when the connector is installed, the tab gets pushed down like that. It keeps it from getting disconnected. Well, when you want to undo it, pull that red tab up, and then there's a little clip right there. So you can see that by my fingernail. It gets pushed out. See it moving by my thumb? So it connects on like that, and you have to get your fingernail up under there. What I like to do, let me show you another connector near the front. This is easier. See the little tab right by my thumbnail? I like to use a paint can opener like this, and you can use it to reach under there and pull up on that tab, and it'll pop off. So to me, that's the easiest way to get these off. There's all sorts of tricks, but that's the method that I use. So anyway, I hope that helps. I've got them all loose now, so I want to undo the fuel rail, and I'm planning to replace the O-rings on all the injectors while I have everything apart. I did not do that last time I had the intake off. So to do that, I'm going to actually have to remove each injector from the fuel rail. Before I do that, I'm going to need to release the pressure, and I think I'm just going to undo this schrader valve here. This is just a little plastic cap, and it looks like a bicycle tire valve. If I press that pin in, see if I can get this to focus. Come on, camera. That pin by my thumbnail. if I push that in with a screwdriver or something and hold a rag over it, it should release the pressure. It's not super high pressure, it's probably around 40 psi, 40 or 50 maybe. So I'm going to do that. The engine's obviously it hasn't run anytime recently, so everything's cool, so there's really no fire risk. Just have paper towels handy and you can release the pressure there. So I'm going to do that next, and then I will remove the 4 bolts that hold the fuel rails on. There's one here, one here, one there, and one there. And I believe those are, let me see if those are 1/2 inch. I believe they are 1/2 inch. Let's see. Yep, 1/2 inch bolts. So there's 4 of those. Then there's a flexible fuel line here that connects one rail to the other. And then there is a fuel, like quick connect connection here. And I'll undo that as well. I just need to grab my disconnect tool and I'll show you how to do that. So let me get my act together and I'll show you that part. Okay, I just relieved the pressure from the fuel rail through the schrader valve. Now I'm going to disconnect the fuel line coming into the fuel rail. First I need to remove this clip. Basically just it's pressed on to either side, and you just take a screwdriver and prop it up. I had already started pulling it off. You can see I just removed it. It's held on by a tie strap. Now I need to have a special tool to remove this quick disconnect here. The tool looks like this. I believe this is a 1/2 inch line, and basically it's split, and see if I can show you with one hand. It comes apart like that, and you push it down over the fuel line like that, and then you push this side, push it in, and it'll disconnect this fitting here, and you'll be able to pull this line over to the side and it'll separate from the fuel rail. So I'll need both hands to do that. I won't be able to show that step, but that's how you do it. So anyway, let me get this apart, then I'll move on to taking the fuel rails off. I wanted to leave them connected for this step just so it would make it easier without the fuel rail trying to slide around as I disconnect the line. So let me get the fuel rail disconnected from the line coming in, and then I'll pull them off the manifold. Okay, I've got the 4 bolts removed from the fuel rails, and I've just loosened the fuel rails. Essentially you just pull straight up. It took 2 hands and a little bit of force, but you pull straight up, and they're just held in place by the O-rings on the bottom of each injector. So just make sure you pull straight up and the fuel rails will come loose. And since we disconnected these from the fuel line, I can now just remove the whole assembly, and I'll be able to replace the O-rings on my workbench instead of having to do it here in the truck. So that will be helpful. We're getting down to the end here. We're almost ready to remove the intake. We just have a couple more vacuum hoses here. This goes to your brake system. That's your brake booster line, and this goes to the PCV valve. So I just need to pull these hoses off, and then we can get to the manifold bolts. I think there are 12 if I remember correctly. Yeah, there's 12, 6 on each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on that side, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6 in the back. I don't think there are any on the back side, if I remember correctly. No, I think it's just those ones down the left and right side. So I'm going to pull these hoses off, and then I'm just going to start disconnecting those 12 bolts. Just going to back them out one at a time, and then the manifold will be free. Actually, I take that back. I still need to remove this water bypass hose here. So it's got a hose clamp here that I installed last time. It's got a spring clamp here. We need to remove that, and I'll be replacing this hose when I put everything back together. I think I replaced it last time too, but it's hard to get to, and I'd rather spend a couple bucks and replace it. In fact, I think the kit that I bought with the manifold gaskets came with this hose. So anyway, I'm going to remove that hose and those 12 bolts, and the manifold will be loose. And I will pull it out of the truck and show you what things look like inside. So I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, one last thing I wanted to mention before I pull the manifold off. You want to clean all this debris that you see here out of this valley before you pull this manifold off, because you're exposing the interior of the engine when you pull this off, and all that stuff is going to fall down inside your crankcase and get in your oil. So I'm going to take a shop vac and suck all this out, but I just wanted to mention that before I did it. That's an important step. If there's one thing I've learned, it's you want to protect the inside of the engine as much as you can. In fact, the last time I did this, I stupidly dropped a razor blade that I was using to scrape the block where the gasket sits, and it fell down into the engine, and I panicked. Instead of taking my time getting my magnet and just plucking it out easily while I could see it, I panicked and tried to pull it out with a pair of pliers that I had in my hands, and ended up knocking it farther down into the engine. And it's still in there now. I spent a couple hours trying to fish it out with a magnet. Finally just hand cranked the engine and was confident that it had made its way all the way down to the oil pan. But it was aggravating, nerve-wracking, you know, and it's in the back of my mind still that, you know, it could get somehow flung up into the internals of the engine and cause catastrophic damage. So I don't think that's going to happen. I'm pretty confident it's in the oil pan, but anyway, just be careful. You don't want to drop anything down here, including debris. So make sure you clean all this stuff out first before you pull the intake off. Have the engine compartment as clean as possible, and don't have any small tools sitting around that you could accidentally knock in. Like I've got stuff up here on the bottom of the windshield. I'm going to move all that stuff out just to be safe so I don't knock anything in here. So I'm going to clean this up, and I'll remove the manifold bolts and pull it off and show you what the inside looks like. Okay, I've got all the manifold bolts removed now. I've got all the hoses disconnected. I ended up just cutting this bypass hose here since I was going to replace it anyway. It was stuck pretty good, so I figured I'd just sacrifice it. Basically everything is disconnected from the manifold, and it is unbolted from the engine block. So it took some force to get it loose, but I've got it loose now. I just need two hands to be able to pull it up and out. It's going to want to catch in the back, probably on the distributor back there. So you kind of need to bring it forward a little bit and up as you pull it out. And here's where it helps to have an extra set of hands, because I'm standing inside the engine bay. I don't have anywhere to set this, and I don't have any help. So I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to get it out and then get myself out of the truck without dropping it and breaking something. So if you can have a buddy that you can turn around and hand it to, that would be helpful for this step. So anyway, let me figure out my game plan. I'll get this thing out of the truck and we'll take it apart and look inside. Alright, I've got the intake out of the vehicle now, and you can see down into the engine. You can see the push rods and the manifold gasket surface here. And then in the front you've got the rubber gaskets that fit across the front and across the back. You can see my RTV silicone in the corners. I used orange because I thought that was okay. I've read that black is better because it has a higher oil resistance, and I'm wondering if that's part of my problem, because I don't see any silicone hardly at all there. You can see a little bit there, but I think this was probably one of my failure points. Like I said earlier, I think also the gasket was getting eaten up by that coolant that was pooling over here in the valley. So anyway, the very first step, as soon as you pull the manifold off, you're going to want to cover all this up with rags and towels to keep debris from going down in there, because we're going to have to clean all the gasket surfaces, and you're going to want to stuff these ports with rags too. Those go down into your cylinders. And this is a coolant port, I believe, here on either side, so you want to stuff that too. Any holes where debris could get, you're going to want to fill. Just be super careful here. Like I said, this is the point where I dropped the razor blade down in the back side back there, and it clinked and clanked all the way down into the oil pan. So it's there for good unless I ever pull the pan off. So just be super careful at this point. I'm going to get some rag stuffed in here and get everything protected, and then I'll show you the intake and what it looks like on the inside. So I'll be back with you shortly.